So Ukraine was able to force thousands of Russian troops out of the Kharkiv region in a matter of days. But along the border with Russia, the shelling continues unabated. DW's Nick Connolly has been to meet people rebuilding their lives to the sound of artillery fire.
Less than a week ago, this was a journey best made in a tank. Now, just an hour's drive separates Kharkiv, with its restaurants and metro, from villages just emerging from 6 months of occupation. Here, within sight of the border, the outnumbered Russian army held on the longest, throwing everything it had at advancing Ukrainian forces. Most of the locals didn't stick around, leaving pets and livestock behind. Svetlana is one of just a handful of residents left on her street. She's been without power and without phone signal for the past 6 months, and as of last week, without a roof.
I came out of the cellar, and after the bang, it seemed like everything was all right. I had to go down again, and when I left, everything was gone. The door, the window, and the roof, all just gone. The blast wave took it straight off. All that's left are my skis.
And it wasn't the first time. After 2 previous hits, Svetlana was able to patch things up, but not this time. Many of her neighbors had it worse.
A boy next door was killed, and 2 houses down the road there was a neighbor, a veteran of the Soviet army. He was sitting in his yard, and out of nowhere a piece of shrapnel hit him in the forehead and killed him. The Russians kept asking me why I didn't leave. I turned it around and asked them why they came in the first place. I've been here for 39 years.
A light sleeper, Svetlana tells us she hopes she'll wake up in time if the ceiling does end up falling down. Like millions of other Ukrainian refugees, Svetlana's daughter and grandson are now in Poland. With her family scattered, she relies on her neighbour Mikhailo for help. But 6 months of occupation have taken their toll on him. As a man of fighting age, Mikhailo was constantly in the sights of the Russian army.
I only left the house during the day. You just have to keep your head down. The first time the Russians picked me up was in April. A few times a month they would get me in again. I still have the marks from the bullets they shot at my legs. They were obsessed with finding out where my brother was in the military and where his documents were hidden.
Mikhailo says his father was taken away by the Russians in March. Since then, all trace of him has been lost on both sides of the border. This is just some of the shrapnel Svetlana has collected in her living room just in the space of the last few days. With no end in sight to the shelling along the border, why not take this chance to get out? She tells us Ukrainian troops offered to take her to Kharkiv in their tank. Her response was simple: not until I've repaired my roof.
For more analysis of the situation on the ground, we are now joined by Marina Miron. She's an honorary research fellow in the Defence Studies Department Centre for Military Ethics at King's College in London. Thank you so much for joining us on the programme. Now, we've seen impressive gains by the Ukrainian army in the last few days. Can we expect something similar in the near future?
That is correct. We have seen some really impressive offensive capabilities in the north, so in the region of Izum, which is the Kharkiv Oblast, close to Russia's border. However, we're still seeing some difficulties in the south. So essentially, the reason for the success, it was a surprise to the Russian forces as they have moved their troops to the south, expecting the so-called Kherson offensive. However, they couldn't hold the ground in the north, and the amount of Ukrainian troops deployed for the northern offensive was outnumbering whatever was left there of the Russian forces. So the best they could do was retreat to save manpower. Right now, the question is, that was a tactical gain for the Ukrainian military. However, they need to hold that ground. And so it is too early to tell how that will turn out. That being said, they definitely undermined Russia's plans in military tactical sense.
Now, it's interesting that you would say that, especially the last bit, because Russian President Vladimir Putin just said that the counteroffensive that came as a surprise, as you say, won't change Russia's plans, that Russia has so far not deployed its full forces. And he added, quote, "We aren't in a rush." What do you make of that?
Well, obviously, it was a slap for Russia in a tactical sense. And the whole idea was to be able to surround Slaviansk and Kramatorsk and repeat the Lysychansk scenario. Now, on the ground, they will have to regroup and change their plan. And they're seeing, obviously, the continuous push in the Kherson region. And that is strategically much more important. Obviously, there needs to be kind of some diplomatic exit for Putin in order to keep the morale high of his forces on the ground. And of course, they are trying to mobilize more forces right now as we speak. However, Kherson is difficult in terms of logistical support to the troops. So it remains to be seen how that plays out.
So, Marina, just briefly, if you would, looking at the other side, the West, can Ukraine handle this offensive or the counteroffensive on its own? Does it need more support from the West, and will it get it?
That's a great question, because obviously the counteroffensive took place now 6 months into the war. The Ukrainian forces have received an enormous amount of help from the West, both in military equipment as well as in training. Yet we have to think about the seasons and about the fact that the winter is approaching, and about Ukrainian economy, which is about to crumble. According to the World Bank, they need 349 billion for recovery of the Ukrainian economy. So on the one hand, they have to sustain that war effort. On the other hand, they will have to provide for the population. And we have seen that Russia has been targeting critical infrastructure, and we've seen blackouts throughout the country. So that makes things more complicated. And we have a bigger picture with you know, the Russian gas and oil supplies in Europe. So that money has to come from somewhere, the help that Ukraine needs. And in how far European countries are willing to sacrifice the good of their own citizens to help Ukraine remains to be seen.
That's the big question indeed. Marina Miron, an honorary research fellow in the Defence Studies Department Centre for Military Ethics at King's College in London. Thank you so much.
Thank you.